Hi everyone and welcome along to this week's Quick Fix Clinic. Today I'm answering Autumn Wardell's question and she says, I struggle with visualising and therefore leaving negative space. I know that it can make such a difference, like with a tree for example, but I can't quite seem to get it right. I look forward to seeing your tips. So thank you for your question, Autumn. It's perfectly apt that I have autumn trees and you're called Autumn. Now you can see here this is a seemingly full tree, but actually if you look more closely there's lots of little bits of negative space. Now for those of you who don't know what negative space is, it is the unpainted areas, the little pockets of white page that just create separation and definition between the bits of painted space. So what I'm going to show you today is how to get into the mindset of negative space, because it is tricky, especially when painting something that is seemingly solid and thick and bushy like a tree. You're like, where on earth does the negative space come? Well, I'm first going to show you a pine tree, because I think that's a really good one for negative space, because not only does the little bits of unpainted white give you more sense of definition on the tree, but it also gives a sense of sort of light and movement. It's just really, really helpful. So for a pine tree, I'm just going to give myself a vertical line here for my trunk, and I am going to use sap green and Payne's grey here, and I'm going to start at the top, and instantly I am using a very light touch with my brush to create a series of branches for my pine tree, but immediately I'm leaving lots of unpainted negative space. And the way I'm doing that initially is by really utilising both the tip, the fine point, and the belly of the brush. So that means that I can be pressing down with different thicknesses because of different amounts of pressure on the brush, allowing for bits of unpainted space. And you'll see that by doing that, we suddenly start to see a tree form with lots of sort of movement and depths in the branches. However, it's not like we see a pine tree and we go, oh, look at all that light in between the branches. But what we do see on a real life pine tree is a huge amount of light and shade, where the light is bouncing off the branches and we might see colours like that, and when the shadows we might see colours like that. Well, using unpainted space is a really simplified way of basically going, we know that it's not just complete thin air through those branches, but we're trying to show that this tree is full of areas that hit the light and full of branches that don't do quite so much. So therefore, in a simple watercolour tree like this, we can achieve that effect by using the unpainted space to give us all of that kind of light and shade. So I'm just going to finish off this tree because I feel like I have to, because I can't just leave a half painted tree on there. So you can see that I'm just making it fan out just a little bit broader as we get to the bottom. I did some really nice Christmas tree tutorials around Christmas time using this technique, and then we can just fan out the bottom. But it's all through using that unpainted space. And then I will just give it a little bit of a shadowy base and a few bits of blue on the bottom. Clean my brush off and allow that to fall down there. And then you see these tiny little bits of unpainted space that have come more from just sort of slightly dry brushing. They just look like tiny weeny glimmers of a highlight, and they're usually painted in that rather sort of spontaneous way, which does help just create a bit of life in your piece. Now, another really useful bit of negative space, use of negative space in tree painting, is tree bark. So I will just give us another vertical line for a different kind of tree, more of like an oak tree type thing. And we're going to have our branches sort of coming off, but we do have our central trunk, which needs to have as much sort of texture and detail as possible, because we all know that it's got a lovely textured bark. So what I can do is, using quite a small brush here, I'm going to sort of have a trunk that sort of falls the thickness of either side of that pencil line. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use again the thickness and thinness of the brush, and just allowing a very, very light touch to create little bits of unpainted space, which creates a textured bark. And then pairing that technique with adding in light and dark colours, having the dark colour contrasting with a bit of unpainted space, which is such a light colour, it is unpainted, it is white, just creates the most wonderful contrast. And then going up into the branches there, even having tiny bits of unpainted space on heavier branches. It allows for almost like a visual shorthand for you to go, I see, because I can see the edges of that trunk are dark and the middle is light, I see that it is 3D and rounded. And all we're doing with watercolour, especially simpler, looser illustration styles, is we are giving the brain the opportunity to use the shorthand, where the brain fills in the gaps and goes, yes, I see that is a tree, I see that it is rounded. And that is the beauty of illustration, when you do not have to achieve a photographic likeness of a piece. What you're doing, and what my ethos has been 100% since I picked up a pencil or a pen for the first time, is to convey the essence of a piece. I've never been interested in photorealism. I like to be accurate, I like to study the subject, absolutely, but I don't need to be photorealistic, because I like personally to use art to capture the charm, the essence of a character, even if it's a tree. Trees most definitely have lots of lovely character. So you can see there, the unpainted space is giving it texture and depth. So I really hope this was a useful quick fix. Autumn, I hope we've answered your question, and I can't wait to see all your tree paintings with lots of light and shade. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again next week.